This is lesson 16. I want to start out with a review so that you are clear on all the different types of verbs that have been introduced in the last few lessons. There are 4 types: the first, second, third eye, and fourth conjugations. So it's 5 types because you have the third and the third eye. The way you can tell them apart is because of their first 2 parts of their lexical entry. Lexical entry is the way that it appears in the dictionary. The first conjugation is distinguished because it has an A before the RE in the second principal part. The next 3 conjugations all have E before the RE. You can tell them apart because the second conjugation has an EO, the third has an O, and the third I has an IO. They can also be told apart in your book, for example, because they mark the long E in the second conjugation. But that is not a feature of more advanced text or ancient manuscripts, medieval manuscripts, or inscriptions. Finally, the fourth conjugation has an I before the RE. Just to sum that up, the first conjugation has an A before the RE, then an E, and you can tell it from the other ones that have an E because it has an EO in the first principal part. The next one has an E with an O in the first principal part, then the IO with the E before the RE, and then simply the I. So the fourth and the first are easy to tell apart because they have the A before the RE, or the I before the RE, and then the other ones you have to use 2 principal parts to distinguish them. Second point is about the demonstrative pronoun hic, hike, hoc, which is also the demonstrative adjective. Hic, hike, hoc is also the demonstrative adjective. So it can be a demonstrative pronoun, it can be a demonstrative adjective. You'll understand both of those terms as we go through the rest of this lesson. A pronoun, we've already learned that, is one of the 8 parts of speech that replaces a noun or stands on behalf of a noun. An adjective, like a demonstrative adjective, is simple. It just describes a noun like any other adjective. So it can be a pronoun or it can be an adjective. When it's used as an adjective, it's translated as this if it were singular, or these if it were plural. That's why it's called a demonstrative adjective, because it points something out. This chair, this girl, these people over here. It can also be used to mean the latter, as in the expression the former and the latter. Again, when you use it as latter, it means the thing that is closer to you in the sentence rather than the thing that happened formerly. And then third, a third little point under the basic description of this word is that it refers to the noun that's closer as opposed to the noun that is further away. Just as in the former and the latter, it's the thing that's closer to you, the term this or these shows you that it's the thing closer as opposed to the thing that is farther away. The lexical entry, the way it looks in the dictionary, looks like an adjective, and so, like an adjective, it agrees in case, number, and gender with a noun it replaces when it's used as a pronoun. And of course, when it's used like an adjective, it agrees in case, number, and gender with the noun it describes. So that's to summarize, case, number, and gender always agrees in case, number, gender, whether it's used as an adjective or whether it's used as a pronoun. It doesn't matter. It agrees in case, number, gender with the noun it describes or the noun it replaces. If it is used as a pronoun, for example, to replace the word puerum, which in this case happens to be accusative singular masculine, then you would have to use the accusative singular masculine form. So, for example, you could say, I see the boy, or you could say, I see this boy. In the second example, hunc is in the accusative singular masculine, just like puerum is in the accusative singular masculine. Hunc has replaced puerum, and instead of saying I see a boy or I see the boy, you say I see this masculine thing. And from the context, presumably, you would know that the speaker or the writer was talking about a boy. If it is used as a pronoun to replace puerum, then you have to use the exact same case number and gender, and there's no difference when you use it as an adjective. If you want to replace or modify rather, the noun with hic, haec, hoc as an adjective, you use the same principles. You make sure that hic, haec, hoc agrees with the noun it's modifying or describing in case number and gender. So in this example, you have, this boy is good. Hic in this case is translated as this boy, or this rather. And in the previous example, I see the boy, we're getting rid of this sentence and replacing it with hunk, I see this, or I see this boy. And you can fill in the blank because you're aware of the context. As you can tell from the lexical entry, which you've never seen anything like it before, hic, haec, hoc, there's your lexical entry. It's highly irregular. Hic, haec, hoc is the same pattern as always. That's the nominative, singular, masculine, followed by the nominative, singular, feminine, followed by the nominative, singular, neuter. This is a little bit like a second declension masculine. This is a little bit like a first declension feminine. This is a little tiny bit like a second declension neuter, but it is not a typical or regular 2-1-2 adjective. Here's the nominative singular form. The genitive form is the same all the way across. Huius, 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 masculine, feminine, or neuter. Same with the dative, huic, 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 masculine, feminine, or neuter. Then it goes hunk, hank, hunk, and then hoc, hack, hoc. Like many adjectives, you note that the masculine and neuter forms are the same, but not always. In the plural, it's a little bit less confusing. The I ending for the nominative plural is pretty normal. The AE ending for the feminine plural is very normal, and then it gets strange again. Also confusing is that hike right here is the same as this form right here. Then it goes to horum, harem, horum. That's very normal. The IS endings in the dative and the ablative are very predictable and normal, as are the accusative plural endings. This one, of course, as all neuters, the nominative and the accusative neuter, singular and plural, are always the same. So there are some tricks that may help you memorize this, but for the most part, this is something that takes time. Again, I would recommend making physical flashcards or going to something like Quizlet and making flashcards online. But this has to be memorized. You'll see these words. Obviously, they're everyday words, this, and then soon you'll learn that. Both of them are common. You have to practice with this and memorize it. I don't think it comes too naturally. It's not very easily predictable. So hic, haec, hoc is the demonstrative pronoun and demonstrative adjective for the word this, or the thing closer to you, or the latter. And next is the demonstrative pronoun illa, illa, illud. That's another demonstrative adjective. That's another demonstrative pronoun. But instead of meaning the thing that is close, as an adjective, it means the thing that is further away. It means that or those in the plural. It can also mean the former as opposed to the latter, in the expression the former and the latter. And then it refers to the noun further away as opposed to the noun that's closer. It is the complement or maybe even the opposite of hic, haec, hoc. Hic, haec, hoc is this, illa, illa, illud is that, and in the plural it would be those things. In both cases, both words are demonstratives. One is the closer thing, one is the thing that is further away. Again, the lexical entry looks just like an adjective, and just like an adjective, it agrees in case, number, and gender with the noun it replaces when it's used as a pronoun, and like an adjective, it agrees with case, number, and gender with the noun that it describes. I'll do the same example I did before. If it's used as a pronoun to replace puerum, which is in the accusative singular masculine, then you have to use the accusative singular masculine form of illa, illa, illud. So if I wanted to rewrite the sentence, I see the boy, and make it say, I see that boy, I could simply say video illum, as long as this is in the accusative singular masculine, just like the word that I'm replacing. And again, its use as an adjective is very simple. I make it agree in case, number, and gender with a noun that it's modifying as an adjective, and then this says that boy is good. If I wanted to say this boy, I would have to make it agree in case, number, and gender, and I'd use hic, hic, hoc. In this case, hic is the nominative singular masculine. No surprise, the declension is highly irregular and has to be memorized, just like hic, hic, hoc. But similar patterns emerge. The lexical entry is unfamiliar. This does not end with a US or an ER as you've been accustomed to see. This does end with an A. And again, this does not end with a UM like a normal 2-1-2 adjective would. This is clearly not a normal 2-1-2 adjective, but the genitive has the same pattern. It's Elias, just like for hic, hic, hoc, it was huias. And then the dative has a similar pattern in that it's the same in the masculine, feminine, and neuter. Then it gets pretty normal, ilum, ilam, illud, noting that the nominative and accusative are always the same for every single neuter. And then the ablative, illo, illa, illo, is very predictable and normal. Ili is predictable, illa is predictable, illa is predictable. It gets very normal in the plural. It's no surprise to see aurum, aurum, and aurum. Is carries across to every gender. This is predictable and normal. And again, the is the same for the masculine, the feminine, and the neuter. So far you've had some experience with the imperative present active, obviously. That's the mood for commands. This is the tense, and this is the voice. The imperative is the mood for commands, is something that you've worked on before with different conjugations, only the first and second conjugations, I believe. And the imperative, you have to remember, only occurs in the second person singular and the second person plural. It only occurs in you singular and you plural. I'll often write y'all or yous or something like that, some local variant of a dialect, but of course the proper English is just you. You have to know that it's plural or singular. To conjugate it, the steps are very simple. You take the second principal part. You should have noticed by now that you always take the second principal part no matter what kind of present tense you're doing. Then you drop the same old pattern, the re for the first conjugation, the re for the second conjugation from the second principal part, the re for the fourth conjugation, and then for the third and third I, you drop the ERE or the ERE. Then you put on the endings. For the first conjugation, you add nothing to it. So, for example, amare would become ama. In the plural, you drop the RE, and it becomes amata. Second conjugation, you add nothing. So monera would just be mone. In the plural, oh sorry, I put it in the wrong place. In the plural, it would be moneta. Let me clarify the chart that gets re-edited when I import it. For the first conjugation, you add nothing for the second person singular, and te for the second person plural. For the second conjugation, you add nothing for the second person singular, and you add te for the second person plural. Note also that in the fourth conjugation, you add nothing for the second person singular, and you add te for the second person plural. Often the first, second, and fourth behave like each other. And then, as I've mentioned, the third conjugation and the third I often behave like each other. For the third conjugation, you add e for the second person singular and e for the second person singular. You add ite for both conjugations.